And I'm glad to welcome in this discussion panel our main stakeholders in this process. Vice Rector of Tallinn University, Katrin Niglas, and Indrek Reimand, who is the Secretary General of Higher Education and Research of Estonian Ministry of Education and Research. And then we have Kristjan Eljand, who is the CIO of STOC, the Computer Technology Advancement Competence Center, or something like that. It's a very complicated word. And as I mentioned earlier, we tried to be quite not very formal. We ask the questions, we discuss the things with panel, but you're welcome to intervene and raise your hand wherever you want to have your say. And if you are not too active, I'll try to activate you. So first of all, when we heard the general results or general remarks of our foreign experts concerning the state of Estonian research 2017, what are your feelings? Do you agree with them? And what you have picked up as the most valuable parts of this evaluation, and what are you not so happy about? And the second question afterwards would be, or second topic would be, how to develop the evaluation procedures and process in the future, taking into account the suggestions what we heard today and what feelings you have had before, and what your best knowledge and from your own experience and from your position. Perhaps I don't know where to start. Whether we will start with the representative of Estonian state, the highest official of research policy, Indrek Reimand.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the to evaluation team for evaluating us. I think that outside view is very useful for us. Also, we know many things you noticed, but this is usually not so independent or foreign view. I think outside view is very useful, and we take into account your points. We at least consider. Some of them are so new that we have to think what we will apply or what we do is with that. I think very useful were those general remarks or even lecture we had, and I think the discussion about academic leadership was also a very interesting one. I think I don't know how we will apply that, but of course we do know several things. For example, that we have very good infrastructure, but we have a threat not to use it maximally because of we don't have a funding structure or simply enough funding for utilize it. So we don't know, but there is no single solution to that. It will depend on our budget, and it is very hard to change. Also, we know the problem is very fragmented and also very project-based funding. So that is also well, historically happened situation. In some part a result of structural fundings and so on, and there are very strong historical reasons why our financing is so project-based. So and we think that we should not regret this, that we have such a history, because, as you said, and I am very pleased that Estonian research is of good quality. I think that means that we have made in the past at least some right decision. So something we did well. And of course, it means that we should forward-looking to think what to change. So we are currently also changing some things. We are currently trying to increase baseline funding, which is not a project funding, but well, stable funding, and to decrease the project share, but not decrease project funding, but the share. So we are increasing baseline funding. So yes, I think there were a lot of very useful comments. We will take them on board, at least for considering. But the question about evaluation itself, I think it is very useful. We have to proceed with it. And some suggestions, for example, to count less things, publications or citations or so on, mean actually that the importance of evaluations or assessments or so will grow. So it means evaluation will remain for sure. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Katrin?
Thank you. Yeah, from one university, I have to take responsibility. We haven't been able to discuss with all universities, so I guess the other representative of the other universities can add to my comments. But first of all, I want to say that one could think, and we are in Estonia more maybe coming from this tradition where the evaluation is thought like top-down initiative, and in this case, especially hearing these today, these results, I should say that we feel it more like a bottom-up evaluation this time, and we hear a lot of our researchers' voice in these suggestions and results or evaluations, so that I would be saying that most of all I agree with most what was said and some other. So it's very difficult to bring out from these suggestions something which is not so good or dispute or to be critical about these points are coming, but I would leave them to more this technical part and what could be done better. But I would bring up 2 points which actually they are not presented as so much of critical, but of points of thought which I had. And first of all is what was mentioned, that this small and big, and especially if it comes to scientific impact measure, so that it was mentioned that for small and very focused institutions and units, it was much easier actually to get this very good results. Now, so that, but it's compared to the bigger ones, maybe in an absolute sense, in the bigger institutions and units, the actual impact, scientific impact, if to take an absolute measures, could be much bigger, but the grade given is lower, and it is something to think about, because also referring to that if these kind of, we are used to think in league tables, and if they are, so these results may start to live their own life in Estonian society in a way that's saying that this big university who tries to do teaching and research, and they have almost nothing then in scientific impact if it's less than some smaller unit. That was one of these kind of thoughts I had, and the other thought was exactly that what you also reflected, this in these short formats, both written form and also these visits were very short, that being self-critical or not, at least we have tried in Tallinn University to be self-critical as much as the forms and format allows, and we hear our adequate feedback get to our worries. But on the other hand, it raises a bit of this, that if some units do not take this self-critical, if the panel is actually able in this short to fetch the problems, then if the units don't bring them up themselves, so that these kind of two thoughts to discuss.
Thank you. So, Mr. Elliand, you represent a very new sort of animal or beast in this arena. There are universities with hundreds of years of traditions. Some of them are 20, 40, 50 years old. But you represent a very new and emerging type of institutions, and you were evaluated for the first time. What are your impressions about that? What do you think of the system?
Yes, thank you. So as we are a private company and now newly evaluated, so this is probably the reason why I am sitting here. And it was interesting experience for us. First, to say what we are, the name is software, suggests that we are developing some software thing, but actually we are focused on machine learning and data science. This is the field which is emerging very quickly, and during the next decade we can expect that it will probably start to change all the sectors now, and that's why we see our activities important, and that's also the reason why we are really happy that we were evaluated. Now, as we are a private company, our relation or our position is also a little bit weird, and that was brought out by evaluators as well. As we are a private company doing applied research, so we are doing applied research, and so everything we do, we try to do it in a way that some real organization will benefit from it sooner or later. And now we are really tightly also related to University of Tartu mainly, but also to some other institutions. And then evaluators brought out that it's difficult to understand exactly our position in the field, that if some publication will be like published, then whose publication exactly it is, if it was like done by our researcher, but at the same time the researcher is really tightly related to university and so on. And yeah, so this is like probably the main point that we should take from here for future, that we should try to clarify the relationship with different parties.
Thank you so much. If there are some representatives of other universities to add what Katrin said from the main stakeholder part. Unfortunately, the vice rector of Tartu University temporarily left, but what about the others? Tallinn University of Technology. Do you have comments on to add something what Katrin said?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Well, indeed, there are many aspects to discuss or consider, but foremost important would be the academic leadership. I would like to emphasize, and I think it's really good that it was mentioned in the very last talk of the previous session, that we should far more devote our attention to the academic leadership, and by doing this, I'm pretty sure that we can improve every aspect of the academic life, in research, innovation, and in education on all levels. But as concerning the evaluation, we do have a number of let's say, perhaps also critical remarks on how this is organized, but I don't think that it would be the right place to discuss these more or less technical questions. But overall, it's very valuable, and as Mr. Raymond pointed out, it's also a vehicle for the university administration on top level, on school level, on department level, to put some changes forward, and I think most of the, or some part of these suggestions or recommendations, we are fully aware of these, but we haven't been really able to move forward with a pace we would like to see, or the others would perhaps expect us to have. And again, this is we have to concentrate. The recommendations are very valuable, and we intend to use them really.
But
thank you.
Thank you. But going further, from your hint that you're going further, what actually I think that the material what we've received or gathered during this evaluation round is so rich that it takes time to employ it fully and to study what's behind. How do you think, how are you doing it practically in university level? What will follow? How do you use the information which has been put down in the reports? Technically saying, the Estonian State Minister issued her decree approving the results, and that's that. Technically speaking, the evaluation procedure is over. But I think that we should go on and on evaluating ourselves. How are you practically intending to do that at the university level, for all the universities?
Well, if I may continue, first of all, it has to be communicated properly to all of the people who could use it. But how exactly we are going to organize the let's say work implementing these recommendations, I'm not quite sure yet, because the evaluation is a field-based evaluation. We have to structure it probably somehow in a way it's compatible with our school and department system. So that's the challenge. But although I'm not able to give you a very concrete answer right now, there are means to do this, and probably we will put it into some committees which will extract the most important ones, as we are on our midway with our development strategy from 2015 to 2020. Actually, it's a very right time to look into this strategy and see, based on the evaluation reports, what needs to be changed, what needs to be perhaps emphasized, or what has lost its relevance today. So that's the work we are going to do within the next months.
So thank you so much. I think that our international peers are able to perhaps change some experience.
So I just wanted to add a comment as somebody who both asks that question but also has to answer it. I think that whenever we engage in these assessment exercises, we try and measure that which is important. But then we make a mistake sometimes in thinking that what we measured is what's important, and that's the only thing that's important. And I made the comment, and I think I own this particularly set the ministry. Your Ministry for Education and Research. Don't separate them out in your head, because actually one of the greatest things that the research is contributing is the cultural stock, and one of the greatest ways that that's transmitted is through the undergraduate students that are taught in the university, and that's a very important function. And you touched on yourself, the large university, you're doing so many things, and research is just one of them, but it doesn't happen by itself. It happens in the context of teaching, it happens in the context of doing societal consultancies and all these kind of things. And I think making sure that that stays as a holistic strategy, and you don't suddenly go off running down the one path of research excellence and forgetting all the other excellent things that you have to get on with as well that can't necessarily be easily measured.
Thank you so much for your remark. Katrin, do you want to add?
It's pretty much the same, but I can ensure that we have these processes running already. We have made a decision to review our development plan, which is also the 15 to 20. We are reviewing or trying to renew our R&D strategy. We also are working on the career model, so that all these processes need this feedback and input. The processes are coming. Just to give a bit of a critical hint is that I truly hope, as this is one of the evaluations in Estonia we have had, and still have a very multi-layered evaluation system, that we just have to hope that next evaluations wouldn't come to interrupt, so that to take all of our emphasis to prepare the next self-evaluation reports and give some time to actually implement.
So, Professor Enns.
Just two comments to the things which were said. First of all, to the point that small entities were basically positively evaluated in terms of their impact when you look at large universities making that much bigger impact in total. Well, I would say it was not evaluated in this way, that's clear. I mean, if you take away the impact Tallinn University does, a lot is taken away, of course. But then you have to see what is the ability of a small entity and what impact, given a small size, it makes, and that's how you evaluate that. So it's a measure which is divided by sort of the overall size of the system, and you cannot, of course, compare of a small entity and Tallinn University the impact. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And the other comment I wanted to make to the software company is, I mean, I well remember that visit, and we were sitting there seeing almost the same faces than we saw in cybernetics. So this was a sort of an identity, and we were trying to find out, I mean, how should we separate that? And it is not separable, and maybe it's good this way. But it's then very hard to judge it in the sense. So one might think of judge it together or something like this, because how should we find out who contributed to what more if this is the same people? I mean, this is almost the same people. And so this is why we came to this conclusion and had this confusion. But I'm not saying this is necessarily bad, but it makes it difficult to judge.
Yeah, I have a comment to that. So, yeah, the people you met were the area leaders, and this is the thing that the area leaders pretty much are even more common amongst these, like university and in us and in Cybernetica, than the people who are really doing the things. And now, this is like a paradoxical situation as well, that we as a private company doing research and trying to do a hard collaboration with these different parties. So the paradox is that when you start doing like very tight collaboration and cooperation, then actually the sense of who is actually doing what might get a bit more lost than when all the entities are as themselves. And at the same time, we are looking for more collaborative initiatives. I think that in all of those presentations that you gave, there were also parts that more collaboration needs to be done. But then, yeah, at the same time, then probably a better rule set has to be laid down how to separate the things still. And for us, at the moment, we see that there are at least some very separate, some ways to separate our activities from the university's activities and cybernetics activities, and easiest being to understand we have our own research areas which university and Cybernetica doesn't have, and which is like 100% stocks work. But this is like, it is like simple to separate these activities, but at the same time there is no collaboration. So this is this slippery thing and difficult thing to.
I didn't mean to say this is negative, that you collaborate so largely or that these units are so close together. It's not negative. It was only a difficulty to assess what exactly comes from whom, for whom. That's all I wanted to say.
So there are quite a few faculty members and university professors and top researchers in the audience. And we have been able to discuss with the administrators basically and policymakers. What's your feeling, researchers, about this evaluation round? Did you find it useful? Oh, the President of Academy of Sciences raised his hand.
First of all, I'm really thankful for all this exercise. But what I caught in my mind from the exercise was just, I would say, two observations. The frame of the entire exercise, of similar exercises over 25 plus years in Estonia has changed radically. It started in beginning of 90s like nanny's advice to kindergarten. Then it went over several patronizing reports, and now it's a real reflection. So this gives me a very good feeling that we are now, Estonian science is now understood as collaboration partner, equal partner in the entire world. And this is sort of implicit compliment to Estonian science from this particular panel. Thank you very much for this. Other thing which I caught from the presentation is entitled with the motto, "Some words which are not told tell more than words that are told." One keyword which wasn't told today was ownership of science. So scientists, whether they have ownership, whether they feel owners of their research, of their field. In one field, in health, it was very strongly mentioned that students are loyal and willing to work. In a couple of other fields, it was mentioned that PhD students are working full-time some other place and just part-time making their research. Again, in the new buzzwords, it means that there is no feeling of ownership from the future of our generation in those fields. So my wish is that the Estonian system would change to the situation where young researchers feel that they are owners of their field and they are necessary for development for their field. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Suomere. So, yeah, otherwise I have asked you. We have distinguished scientists who are the members of the evaluation committee of Estonian Research Council, and one of them, Professor Iiri Lutsar, raised her hand. Otherwise,
Thank you very much. I'm a professor of clinical microbiology of the University of Tartu, and I'm also the member of evaluation committee. The one thing that struck me was the remarks of the PhD studies. and how everything was hidden behind these 3 papers. So it's sort of 3 papers became like a bad boy in the class. The question is not the 3 papers, but the question is that we want our PhD students to be competitive in a European level. And whether they write 3 papers, 7 papers, or none of those papers, but they need to be able to analyze their data. And that's what we require. And sometimes it is sort of translated that the demands are very high. No, demands are not very high, but you just need to be able to be competitive in European level. And one thing what the President of Academy already mentioned, that maybe the one problem that we have, that our PhD students do everything. They have young family, they work full time, then they have several other activities, choirs and sailing and skiing, and then they do PhD on the top of that. And obviously they only have 24 hours a day. And that's where probably the issue is, that maybe we need to teach our young people to put priorities right.
Thank you, Irja, for raising this question, because that issue came up from several different panels, actually, and I think we have to address that. It's quite a concrete suggestion, and that quality requirement was set when we were perhaps not that confident about our own ability to evaluate the scientific quality of our researches. Do you want to comment any of the panelists on this issue? 3 papers. Is it time to abandon that? Actually, that is not written into the law. That is just an agreement, even not. Yeah, but it's still used quite heavily. What are your comments on that?
I think it depends a lot on the field. Still in Tallinn University, we have equal right and importance to put a monograph-based thesis and article-based thesis. And with a monograph-based thesis, it's only 1 article we require, so that we still keep that idea that PhD should be able to show that at least some experience of a good level publication.
Well, that question pops up sometimes again. I feel that we have a reflection from evaluation team, and that is an argument for thinking about lowering that requirement. It is not a legal requirement. It is a soft agreement between universities, but I think universities should take into account the outside view of, I think, a good professional view.
So, I will ask some researchers. One of the very active researcher is Anne Kahru, and she has given us several times talks about the different kinds of research careers. And what do you think of this issue? You have not touched upon on that 3-paper issue before, but as you have reflected on the different barriers of research careers, what's your opinion about that?
You are asking about the 3 papers.
Yeah.
I would not step down from these 3 papers. Definitely, I think this is a big bonus, because when a student, really I agree totally with Irja Lutsar, yeah? When a person will analyze the data and able to write it, the paper, that currently is a very competitive thing. And also then from all abroad specialists will be referees of this paper and give so good remarks that are equal to supervisor's remarks. And after this person comes out of this PhD, this person must be in the open field to start to get the grants and so on. I would not step down from these 3 papers. The impact factor of the journal must be not over 10, but it is a big help.
So, thank you. But one of the new features of this evaluation was that we tried to capture the socio-economic impact. What's your reflection on that? Did we succeed with that? Hearing today's comments, or has it changed a little bit the mindset of the researchers or the universities, that the universities have to think more how to express what's the outputs or the outcomes of their research are? What we believe that we found out that a remarkable side from when we analyzed the things with my colleagues in the Estonian Research Council, that there are so many of different ways. We knew it, but it was quite explicitly brought up, and perhaps our scientists are not able to explain that in a proper way. What do you think of this?
I have to say, we consider in Tallinn University the societal impact and working on that very crucial. But we have had some worries about the tendencies in Estonia to measure it only in money, and not only in money, but with the money-based contracts with enterprises better than international. So that I really was happy about these suggestions and comments, and also the evaluation marks on that sense that it pushes us to look a bit broader to the how and in what ways our research can have a societal impact. Yes.
Thank you. I think that this time we asked you, evaluation team, to evaluate also the socio-economic impact. And well, I think inner circle of researchers are convinced that the research has a huge socio-economic impact, and well, we at our ministries are also convinced, but the wider public often don't know that. And also we are not very well trained to communicate that. So we also cannot well measure or count or however to estimate what is that impact. It is very hard to quantify, it is very hard to prove. And so we need examples, stories, and we need to think how to communicate this to the wider public. And I am personally convinced that research has a strong impact, and basic research has a strong impact to the society, to economy as well. That impact is often going over the well-educated people and also over the results which will result in applications in 20 years or 50 years or so. But we need to evaluate it, we need to communicate it, we need to convince other people as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I will comment on that as well, because everything that STAC does is aimed for socio-economic impact kind of soon. As we are not doing basic research, then we are aiming for socio-economic impact 1 year, 6 months, something like that. And we are on the interesting position of doing that as well. Compared to universities, for example, if some company comes with their specific problem that needs some intelligent solution, with machine learning solution, for example, and tells that the time frame of the project is 6 months, then universities might be on the position with their teams that they are not able to handle this because they have planned their resources like for 1 year, even maybe a longer time. But since we are like borrowing our methods from science and at the same time trying to do the things by business rule book, then we are able to answer to these things. And actually, sometimes it's even that from our side, it's like project management and several researchers are from university side as well. So since now we are evaluated, I can like say that maybe aiming for this socio-economic impact as you have succeeded on this.
So thank you. I'm sure everyone accepts that it's measuring socio-economic impact is one of the most complicated things, which is put ahead to the science policymakers and scientists themselves. But still, we have to find out how to better to communicate to the audience and to the society, especially the multifaceted ways the research impacts society. But now we are, time is flying. The second question, what should we do in the future better than we have done up to now? Do you have any ideas just now? Or because what we have seen here when doing and implementing research policy in Estonia, we have completed one thing and one big political measure, and then we drop it and grasp for the next one. But to employ the fruits of this evaluation round, I think that we should start to look for the future just now, because when the information is still there and we have fresh ideas, what do you think what we should do in the future?
Yeah, that comes to that difficult part, and I have to admit that during the preparation period, and shortly after, I was even struggling with the idea that if it was all worth it, because it took so much of technical trouble. But now, if I have reflected, I guess 2/3 of this administrative struggle can be taken off from the process, and then it's more balanced. And it's just to mention that the time frame was brought earlier than it was planned. We came over to Frascati, which we all, I guess, welcome, but it created a lot of need for redoing our data and records in the system, and all that at the same time, as it was already mentioned, the system didn't work for us either. So we had to redo the same things in the system. So that's definitely what we have to think. And I already mentioned that, on the one hand, the tricky part is that on the one hand, we should align better different evaluation systems, but on the other hand, we don't really want too big changes right after the experience. So.
Well, I personally was not doing the things, and I don't know the difficulties as well. So I only see the results, and I think that those changes we made, for example, to assess socioeconomic impact or to align the evaluation with doctoral studies accreditation, I think these were useful and good. And also, I do think that this type of discussion after the evaluation is very useful. It is not required, but I think it should remain. So it is very, very useful. Well, we heard here a lot of suggestions. We think about them. there were some interesting suggestions as well. For example, for me, that a suggestion to demand long-term strategic plans from all institutions. Well, we demand it, or it is required by each step. So each institution have a long-term strategy, but maybe the stress was on the other part of that suggestion, not to push institutions to some directions in this. And it obviously says us that currently we are pushing, probably. And before each call of grants or so, they are changing just to influence with their long-term strategy for the results of some calls, and that means it is not anymore their strategy, but well, tactical document to get more money in that call. So probably is the stress there that we should not put into dependency from that long-term strategy, not to push institutions. We think how we can address this type. Well, I think that you had a lot of suggestions, and we can always do things better. So it will never end. I think that we have room for thinking. Thank you.
So do you have some suggestions what to do better?
Yeah, I just have a comment that our evaluation process actually took like, I think, few years, because we tried to get evaluated before this regular evaluation period. But somehow it was like, yeah, for us it was a really long process and very much bureaucracy there as well. That being said, I think that some of this bureaucracy is really necessary, because it's not like evaluators are saying to us that you are doing a nice job there in your company. They are rather saying that you are doing research. So and research has its field and its rules, and so some of this bureaucracy is like necessary, and everybody who applies have to kind of be able to fit this minimal bureaucracy that is like necessary. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe the bureaucracy can be less, because I don't have a good context like how much it was like at the previous regular evaluation, and what can be done better. But yeah, so this is my comment.
Thank you so much. Are there any scientists wanting to comment on that? What should be done better in the future? Easier with less said. We discussed the term yesterday with my colleagues, and we agreed that the term bureaucracy doesn't sound good. It's perhaps better to say administrative load.
My name is Argo Rosin. I am from Tallinn University of Technology, and I am Vice Dean for Research in School of Engineering. Our school is the same size almost as Tallinn University. But what to talk? Actually, too much evaluations. From point of view our administration, I think in future it would be good if we can reduce amount of evaluation. Or it means if we evaluate the research, we also will evaluate same time the doctoral study. This year, for example, we have already during this research evaluation also evaluated somehow the doctoral study, and now we continue to evaluate again doctoral study, but from little different point of view. I think this is a very important point to reduce such type of bureaucracy. It is, how? Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for experts also.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Yeah, Tiina Nõges. Tiina Nõges is also the member of our evaluation committee.
I'm working in the University of Life Sciences, and my field is hydrobiology. And I would like to thank all evaluators, but also to ask a suggestion, because somehow I feel that the environmental sciences have kind of fallen between two chairs in this evaluation process, between natural sciences and agricultural sciences. For example, more than 1 year ago, we applied for a Center of Excellence in agricultural sciences, and we were re-qualified and told that it's natural sciences. In this evaluation process, all environmental science, almost all environmental science in our university was put under natural sciences. But if I read the reports on agricultural sciences in Tartu University, I can see that most of these weak points which were told to our application of Center of Excellence concerning this large sense of environmental sciences that is not agricultural science, is now mentioned as very strong points in environmental science in Tartu University, which very well supports and contributes to agricultural science and nature protection and sustainable development. So I'm a bit confused where, for example, this aquaculture, fisheries, hydrobiology, which is very closely connected to blue growth, which is now in Horizon programs and Frascati under agricultural sciences, where they actually should be put, maybe would be made more clear to universities before next evaluation.
So it means that your suggestion was that we have to, while classifying the applications, we have to reconsider or to check whether this classification is right, or either. Do you have some comment on that?
Well, I cannot give you a detailed answer where fisheries should be. I don't know personally, but I think it's defined quite well in Frascati manual. So this is the book according to which we can classify it.
So thank you. I think this falls in the area of some technicalities, but Reino Veintal. Yeah, please.
Thank you once more. I grabbed for the microphone, and now I had a little bit more time. And I guess I read from the face of Mr. Koppel that it's about the time for conclusive remarks. So for myself, and excuse me if I'm thinking out loud, the most important conclusions, I guess, I will take with me from this meeting is that we should try to put more emphasis on socioeconomic impact without compromising basic research, without compromising the blue sky research or excellence in research, but still try to move away from kind of fetishing the research metrics. So whatever the results of the research manifests itself, it's good as long as we are able to see that it does manifest itself in some form. And still, I like very much the idea or the recommendation to think harder, to try harder, to create more impact to the society. The next idea I would like to take with me is that we need to continue the discussion on tenure track among Estonian higher education institutions. As a representative of Tallinn University of Technology, I'm of course proud that we have made perhaps the first move, but nevertheless, it's something which is a common concern for Estonian research institutions, that we have to develop a solid academic career model, which I guess would improve the competitivity, but again in the sense that we are not fetishing any kind of metrics here, but actually trying to produce more freedom to these people who are in tenure system, and thereby maximize their potential. And then the third thing is the PhD education. Just 2 months ago, we had a PhD, European University Association PhD conference here. I think many relevant issues were discussed there, and now after we have received these evaluation recommendations, we should also continue the discussion about the content and quality and quantity of PhD education in Estonia.
So thank you, Rena. I think that you have made very good conclusive remarks. It means there is not much to do for me. I think that all the partners in this game, starting from the policymakers, the Ministry of Education and Research, implementers, Estonian Research Council, universities, and also within the universities, the leaders of research groups have to contemplate on the suggestions, and I do hope that the several changes in the policy documents will emerge based on this evaluation. So thank you again so much for the panelists for actively participating in the panel and all the audience. Now we will split into 6 groups according to the research fields, and it's going to be a more face-to-face communication. Thank you.